support to the people of Palestine and for Palestinian statehood. Now, we know that historically there have been strong relationships, strong bonds between Africa and Palestine. And because of Africa's liberation and anti-colonial struggles that they have suffered for years and years and years. And that is the reason why South Africa and the African continent identify so closely with the Palestinian struggle.
Yes, of course. By the way, I'm talking to you from Palestine. So good morning from Palestine, from Jerusalem, from Ramallah to South Africa. To be honest, we have a deeply rooted friendship relations between Palestine and the African continent in general, and in particular with South Africa, because we have a liberation movement that fought shoulder to shoulder with the Palestinian Liberation Organization when all of these liberation movements were not allowed to operate or not allowed to do the proper struggle in their places. So we do believe that this year, in the occasion of the UN International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, not only to talk to the people of South Africa or to the government of South Africa, but taking into consideration all the changes that are taking place in the continent, especially in Africa now, and the Israeli trials and the U.S. pressures on other governments and people to oblige and to apply to the Israeli demands to follow or to recognize Jerusalem or to recognize the annexation whatsoever, in return for some technical or promises of technical cooperation. We found it more appropriate to target and to talk to the African continent in general, to remind the people and to revive the historical bonds and the historical relations of struggle and solidarity between the people of Palestine and the people of Africa in general.
Yes, and also, Ambassador, when one looks at the various organizations like the African National Congress, when we look at even organizations like SWAPO in Namibia,
Yes.
and many other organizations, and also personalities, people like Nelson Mandela, like Julius Nyerere, who was among the first African leaders to recognize the PLO, the association they had with people like Yasser Arafat. And this is very, very profound. This is very, very important that we recognize the fact that the Palestinians and the Africans together in a common struggle against occupation, against colonialism.
Exactly. This is what we are trying now to revive the legacy of the struggle among the people of Palestine and the people of Africa. As I mentioned, the Israeli government and the U.S. administration under Trump was targeting the African continent, trying to deviate the attention and to deviate the focus and to deviate the support and solidarity of the African people from the Palestinians. They were trying to take them away from their natural environment, from the geographical environment that they are in, promising with some mirage of prosperity or economic development and so on. That's why we wanted by this event that we held in Pretoria, and in the context of the solidarity, to revive the legacy of the international solidarity that we were enjoying during the 60s and the 70s and even the 80s, when the African countries were just colonies. And because of the international solidarity and because of the strong bonds between strong icons like Yasser Arafat, Nelson Mandela, Nyerere, and many other African struggle icons, Sammy Newmouth in Namibia. We wanted to revive this legacy. We want to remind the people that the bonds between Palestine and Africa is even stronger than a mirage of economic development. Of course, we take into consideration that everyone has an interest now in a changing world where struggle and liberation terminologies are not in place anymore, unfortunately. But still, Palestinians have so much to offer. Palestinians need your solidarity and support so that to be independent exactly as we did in the past.
Yes, and also just looking at South Africa in particular, and we know there are many South Africans who are fighting for a free Palestine. We've seen the BDS movement, we've seen the various Palestinian solidarity organizations, we've seen trade unions, and even we've seen within the ruling party where we see the struggle for the fight for a free Palestine. And just your thoughts in terms of coming together, of being united in this fight, in the struggle for a free Palestine, but also at the same time forming this common bond with the rest of Africa to make a bigger impact for the struggle for the liberation of the Palestinian people.
Of course, it's important because everyone considers, and it's not a secret, that South Africa is the big brother in the continent. It puts between its arms and in its labs many other African countries because of its place and because of the icon of Nelson Mandela and because of the legacy of the struggle of the ANC. That's why we do believe that it's important to start from this place, start from South Africa, to spread the message of the importance of solidarity. And we cannot deny, and on the contrary, we are very much honored and privileged as Palestinians, and even as the Palestinian embassy, to receive the huge support from the South African people, from the South African grassroots organization, human rights organizations, political parties and unions, the government itself, the ANC, and many other components of the South African society. We do believe that this huge support will bring its fruits soon by supporting us not only also in South Africa, but also outside the continent. Africa for Palestine did a huge and a major step in advancing and expanding the voice of Palestine over the continent. They will be visiting Zimbabwe very soon. They will be visiting Malawi, advocating for Palestine. We are working on different levels because South Africa is big, and so our mission should be big as South Africa.
Also, Ambassador, as far as the Trump administration is concerned, and we know his history right now, but just before he left office, and as you mentioned, that targeting Africa in its support for Israel, and we've seen the negotiations, we've seen the agreements that have been reached with countries like the UAE, with Bahrain, and we see Sudan obviously has now signed, and we know there are a few other North African countries that are under the radar, that have come under the target, countries like Morocco, for instance, as well. And just your thoughts, in terms of targeting Africa and how Africa should be reacting, should this be extended to other countries around the continent?
We are watching things that are happening on the ground, and we are careful about what's going on. But also, we do believe that the struggle and the legacy of struggle and the legacy of solidarity, as I mentioned, is much stronger than any promises or any mirages. Of course, we take into consideration that every country has its own interests, and every country should take care of it or should take care of its own interests. But at the same time, this shouldn't be on the expense of the rights of the Palestinian people, their rights in self-determination, in sovereignty, in having their own independent state with East Jerusalem as a capital. Every country has a right to do whatever it wants, even to normalize their relations with Israel, but this should not take place on the expense of the Palestinians' inalienable rights. This is our bottom line, and this is something that we always try to explain to countries. And even when it comes to development and when it comes to promises to provide assistance, technical assistance, also Palestine has much to offer when it comes to areas that Palestine has competitive advantages in like agriculture, irrigation, water, ICT, medication, and so on. So we have many things to offer, and we do not require any repayment either at the UN or at the African Union or at any other international forum, not like the Israelis do. So we do believe that, yes, countries might take care of their interests, of course, and it's their own right. We can't deny this. But at the same time, we are not expecting countries to do so on the expense of the Palestinian rights.
Yes, and just finally, in your piece that you have written, and you talk about it, I'm going to quote what you've written, where you say, we Palestinians are inspired by Africa's liberation struggle and its former leaders. Israel's violent occupation has not defeated us, even though Israeli settlements on Palestinian lands continue to expand, and where political resistance is brutally crushed. And towards the end, you make mention of the fact that the importance of Africa's solidarity along with the rest of the global south, which is a vital pillar in our struggle against Israeli colonization and occupation. And what you are also saying further is you're saying African nations must not veer from their legacies of fighting for justice and continue supporting the occupied and colonized people of Palestine. Now, this is very, very important because what you are saying is Africa must not forget that, listen, we've come from a legacy of fighting against injustice and against colonization. And that is the motivating factor as to why it is so important to support the Palestinian cause.
True, yes, exactly. You said what all I want to say, which is written in the piece, in the article. I mean, it's important, as I mentioned, not to forget that the African continent in the 60s and in the 70s was only mere colonies, occupied and oppressed. Its people are oppressed by the colonizers, exactly as Palestine. Because of the international support and because of the solidarity and because of the support in struggle from other people, including Palestinians, like the Palestine Liberation Organization, like Yasser Arafat, who stood shoulder to shoulder with other freedom fighters in struggle against the colonizers, that the colonies, the African colonies, are now sovereign and independent states. That's why we do believe that there are many things that bring us together. Africa was fortunate to have their independence and to become sovereign state. Unfortunately, Palestine is still trapped in a colonial expansionist regime. Actually, it is even worse than the apartheid. That's why we do believe that people who share same history should stand together for their own principles and support each other so that everyone should be liberated as should be.
Well, Your Excellency, Ambassador Hanan Jarrar, we certainly do appreciate your time with us. We thank you, and I know you've taken time out of your busy schedule to talk to us here on News and Views on Salam Media. We wish you all the best, and once again, thanking you for your time with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Her Excellency Ambassador Hanan Jarrar with us this morning, Palestinian ambassador to South Africa, talking about Africa and the solidarity, the importance of the solidarity that Africa has to offer Palestine in its fight for liberation. The time is just gone 8:47. We come back, we'll be joined by Dr. Wayne Duvenage, CEO of OUCHA, and talking about Senrel, which has now extended the e-toll collection contract for a further year with electronic toll collections, ETC.
Osman's Taj Mahal Spice and Rice. For over 80 years, Osman's Taj Mahal have